How's it going, everybody? Thank you so much for tuning into this video. I would like to say that I hope y'all had an awesome Thanksgiving. You were able to spend time with friends and loved ones. And I feel like in today's day and age, with everything going on, this year's been friggin' nuts. I really hope that you guys were able to have, some quality time with your family. Some of you have asked me about, does my 6.5 have an EGR? What is the EGR? How do I tell if it is equipped with EGR? How do I get rid of it? So let's go over that, shall we? Let's start off with what is EGR. EGR is exhaust gas recirculation. In layman's terms, you're making your engine eat its own shit. The easiest way to put it. The more complex answer to that is you're throwing exhaust gases into the intake for a second burn, producing a cleaner burn out the tailpipe, producing cleaner emissions, things of that nature. So that's EGR in a nutshell. Why do we have EGR? Well, basically the government says that a long time ago, they said that vehicles need to start burning cleaner. We need to really crack down on our carbon footprint. We need to lower it. And how do we make vehicles more efficient and burn cleaner? Well, we'll throw an EGR on it. And in today's day and age, you see vehicles have an EGR, and on the newer diesels, a DPF system. Basically just making sure that there's no coal coming out the tailpipe. It's EGR, the only pro I can think of, and please, if you have other pros, please leave them in the comments below. But the only pro that I can think of an EGR is a cleaner burning truck, reducing our carbon footprint. That's it. That's all I could think of. Let's talk about the cons of keeping an EGR on your truck. And this is unfortunate for the people or you guys that live in a state where emissions equipment is mandatory. If you live in a county that you have to have emissions equipment on it, I really do feel for you, because EGR can cause quite a bit of problems. So let's talk about the cons of keeping an EGR on a truck. You're pumping hot exhaust gases into the intake. Not to mention, you're also putting soot into the intake. What is that soot doing? What are those hot gases doing? So I've talked before about, getting cold air into the intake, keeping these things nice and cool. Cold air obviously equals more power than pumping hot air. There's a reason why newer trucks have an air-to-air system or charge air cooler. It's all about getting cold air into the intake. Well, with the EGR, you're pumping hot exhaust gases into the intake, making your intake temperatures hot, making your combustion chamber hot, and making your EGTs hot. With hot EGTs comes the potential to wipe out your turbo or decrease the efficiency of your overall motor. Of course, keeping your EGTs is important. You're really saving the life of your turbo, especially if you have one of these GM turbos. They're not bad turbos, of course, but the more crap you're throwing at them, you're just wearing them out quicker than what you would if you didn't have it. Of course, you're not able to make more power if you have a hot combustion chamber, because Cold air is more dense than hot air, and that's a whole science lesson that I'll most certainly do in another video if you guys so want. But you're able to make more power with colder intake temperatures and keep your EGTs cooler with colder intake temperatures. Pumping hot, sooty exhaust gases into the intake causes, of course, quite a bit of issues. Along with those, pumping soot into the intake is going to coat your entire intake in soot. Of course, you also have crankcase ventilation or oil vapors getting into the intake as well. So what happens when you mix oil vapors with soot? A gooey, nasty, black snot, disgusting, just in the intake. That can clog up valves. It will restrict your airflow, and none of that is good. You're not going to be able to make as much power as a 6.5 that doesn't have that equipment. You're just throwing everything at this thing to fail by keeping your EGR hooked up. And I'm not saying this to be, a Grinch or Debbie Downer about, your truck has an EGR. Like, I love all vehicles, and I love making them better, and that's just one way, in my opinion, to make them better is get rid of the EGR. So how do you tell if your 6.5 was equipped with EGR? And you're not going to be able to pinpoint it down to this year specifically ran all EGR equipped trucks. No, it was all how it was spec'd from factory. Your gross vehicle weight rating applies, because some of the heavier trucks, like 1 tons, weren't necessarily equipped with EGR because they met a they were in a different gross vehicle weight rating bracket, and they didn't have to be equipped with EGR. But you can run into, K1500 or C1500 6.5 that wasn't equipped with it either. So how do you tell if you have an EGR? The easiest way to tell is if you look on your intake horn, which is your top intake that goes to the turbo. It's held on by these 6 bolts to the intake manifold. If you have a little valve, if you have a little valve with 2 bolts right here with a little vacuum line coming to the top of it, that's your EGR valve. Your truck is definitely equipped with an EGR. That little line is a vacuum line. Of course, diesel engines don't make vacuum, so that vacuum line or that EGR valve is being controlled by the vacuum pump, which is located right underneath the alternator on the passenger side. Of course, I've deleted my vacuum pump, and my truck was never equipped with EGR anyways. That's the easiest way to tell if you had or have an EGR. If your intake horn has 2 bolts but a little flat plate, that means either somebody has deleted the EGR valve, or your truck was meant to be equipped with it but never was, and they put a little plate on top of it. That's totally fine. I haven't seen a whole lot of issues out of that other than the gasket going bad because you're putting too much friggin' boost to it. But that's one way to indicate that you may not have an EGR valve, but you still may have a EGR equipped intake manifold. So how do you tell? Just by looking at the say you don't have the 2 bolts, or you just have a flat plate like mine. but you're still wondering if your truck was equipped with EGR and somebody didn't go that far into deleting it. Well, you can look, see right where my light is pointing at the very end, that little notch right there, that is your EGR port from your head on your engine. That little port is what allows exhaust gases to enter the intake manifold, which is your lower part. And then your intake manifold underneath the intake hat will have a little cone-shaped thing. That is the port that port connects to. And just by looking at it, if you had a lower intake manifold that was equipped with EGR, right on that notch, there would be a raised position on the intake manifold. Right here where my middle finger is, there would be a corresponding raised ridge right there. And that's dead giveaway that either somebody has swapped the the intake horn and kept the lower intake manifold because they didn't feel like unbolting it and getting new gaskets and everything of that nature. So that is EGR and how to tell in a nutshell. Of course, if you don't have that raised ridge like mine does not, and you don't have the intake horn that has the 2 bolts, that's dead giveaway. You don't have an EGR. You don't have to worry about it. One less thing to worry about. So you're not going to find like a specific year that always ran EGR on them. That's just what I've come across. But that is how to tell in a nutshell. So if you have an EGR and are wanting to delete it, what do you got to do to go about doing that? Of course, get rid of the EGR valve. If you plan on keeping your vacuum pump for whatever reason, plug off the vacuum line via kink it over or just plug the line with a little rubber grommet. Get rid of the EGR valve. You're going to have to either get that top plate like I was describing on the intake horn, or get a flat top like you saw on mine. You're also going to have to get rid of the lower intake manifold, or the intake manifold. It's just one piece, and then you have your intake horn. That will allow no exhaust gases getting into the intake. That is the best way to do it. Of course, I recommend deleting the vacuum pump as well. Your choice, it's personal preference, but replace the intake horn, the intake manifold, get rid of your vacuum pump. Of course, if you have a vacuum controlled wastegate on your turbo, you're going to have to, if you get rid of your vacuum pump, swap it to a manual wastegate. That may be one reason why you keep your vacuum pump, so you can keep the vacuum line going to your turbo, of course. But it's all personal preference. I personally believe that EGR is bad. EGR is a no-no. And it should not be on any of these 6.5s. But, you know, to each their own. Everybody's got an opinion. So, I hope y'all enjoyed the video. Please put your 6.5 down below, what year, make, model you have. Is yours equipped with EGR? Was it not equipped with EGR? Did you swap it from EGR to non-EGR? Please let me know in the comments below. I love talking to you guys. I genuinely have a good time talking with you guys. If y'all want to see more videos like this and you have any ideas for a video, please let me know. Either leave them in the comments or get a hold of me personally on Facebook or Instagram. Of course, I'll leave everything in the description box below like I've always done. Again, you guys can get a hold of me however you would please. If you'd like to see even more of this truck, please consider subscribing, checking out some of my older videos. Go over to my personal Instagram or my Facebook. If you'd like to see even more 6.5s or any motor IDI related, and go over to IDI Legends on Instagram, Facebook, and if you so please, check out the IDI Legends website. We always greatly appreciate every single one of you, but thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Take care, Legends.